So this video is on streams and basic file I/O. And I/O stands for input and output. So we're already used to using cin and cout. And basically what cin does is it will get user input from the console. And that is why it's called C, and that's for console input. And this one will output to the console. Again, and so it's console in, console out. That's what C and C out means. So we have new streams that we are going to use, which will actually get input from a file and actually output to a file. And in order to do that, we have to use two classes. The first is called ifstream. And ifstream basically reads from a file. And we have output ofstream. And ofstream basically writes to a file. Right, and if you notice, when we do cin, for example, we use the extraction operator, right? And we can extract from the keyboard and we can put the value that we get from the user into a variable, let's say x, right? Let's say we had a variable named x. Then we can read from the console, whatever the user punches in on the keyboard into the console, it will extract that from the console and put that into a variable named x. Similar, when we use a cout, we basically use the insertion operator and we can output something to our console. So our OF and IF streams work very similarly. So first, in order to use those, we have to include the file stream library. And the way we do that is we say include, and that library is called fstream. All right, and so once we include that, then we actually have access to these two new classes, ifstream and ofstream. All right, and so if we wanted to actually use these classes, we would have to create an object of those classes. All right, and so to create an object of those classes, we can go into our main and we can create the object by giving the data type, which is the class name, and then creating a name for the object. In this case, I have N for the IF stream, and I have the OF stream, and I'll call that one out. All right, and so just please note, IF stream means input file stream, and OF stream means output file stream. All right, so that's pretty much how we will create objects of those files. So in order to use those files, in order to use these objects, we actually need a file, right? So we need to be able to open a file and either read data from it or write data to it. And so the way we do that is we use member functions that are inside this object to open a file, right? And so we will use out.open, and then inside here it's going to take a string, and the string is going to be the path to the file. All right, and then once we open the file, then we can actually start writing to it. And the way we write to it is we use the insertion operator. Right, and then once we're finished writing, then we have to close that file in order for that file to save. So we will use our function called close. And that function does not take any arguments. And so that is that's basic usage of our streams. So let me just go a little bit deeper on what's actually happening. So out, right, this out and this in, this out here and this in here, these are objects, right? So let me just give a brief description of what it means to be an object. We've learned this a little bit already when we were talking about structs, right? So let's take an example. If we had a water bottle, right? Let's just talk about objects in general, right? So say I had a water bottle. Now, a water bottle seems plain and simple, but a water bottle has lots of attributes to it, right? First of all, we have a cap, right? Then we have our container, right? And then we have, we have substance that we can put inside. I'll just say like we have some liquid that we can put in, right? So those are kind of attributes for a water bottle. But what about things that we can do with the water bottle? We can, we can take off the cap. We could fill the bottle with water or some liquid. And we can pour the liquid out, right? Right, so these would all be attributes of this water bottle. And so if we were to translate this into computer science, we would do something like this. We would probably create a class, and we would call it bottle. And then inside that bottle, we will put in our attributes, right? So we have a cap, and I would say maybe if we were going to have a cap as an attribute, maybe we would describe that cap, right? For instance, we have a string cap, right? And this will tell us, whether it's a flip cap, whoops, whether it's a twist off, or maybe it's a sports cap, etc. Right, and perhaps with our container, perhaps that would also be another string. And maybe this container will tell us whether, it's made of plastic or glass or tin, etc. Right, so this is giving attributes and helping us fine tune what this water bottle is. We have liquid in it, so maybe that'll be a string as well. And, the liquid will describe whether it's water or maybe it's, some vodka, etc. So those would be kind of attributes that we have for the bottle. We also have take off cap, fill with liquid, pour liquid out. These are all functionalities, right? Functionalities of the bottle. So we might want to list these as functions, right? So maybe I have a function that says void, open bottle. And then maybe I'll have a function that's called void, fill bottle. And then with that, we will take an attribute, string, and we'll fill it with some liquid. And then our last function, pour the liquid out, right? Maybe that's going to return what liquid is inside the bottle, and we pour it out. Right, so this will kind of be what an object is, how we would define an object. This is very basic ways we would define an object in computer science. So what does that have to do with file stream and writing to files? Well, basically, these file streams have functionalities, right? The whole purpose of these objects are so that it can read and write to a file. So there's functionalities built into these objects so that we can complete these tasks, right? And so if we look at my bottle class, if I wanted to actually create an object of bottle, then I just say bottle, maybe we'll call it B. And now I can say, bottle dot cap equals, maybe it's a flip cap, right? So notice I use this dot, right? This is called the dot operator. And basically what this operator does is it gives us access to our attributes. Right? And these attributes are actually called member variables and member functions. All right, so we're not going to worry too much about our member functions and our member variables until we get into actually writing out classes. But this is kind of giving you an idea of how we are using our file strings. We have to use the dot operator in order to get the functionality that we want from our file stream objects. Right? So notice here, I am calling a function called open, and I want open to open a file so that I can prepare to start writing to it. And then once I am done, I want my object to close that file. And so that is another functionality that this particular object has. All right, so that is pretty much how we would use an output stream. All right, so our secret word today is dog. Here is how we would use our input stream, right? So our input is actually writing to, it's actually writing, it's going to get information from a file, and it's going to be able to take that information and we can put it in our program, right? So say I have a file here, and the file consists of the number 1, right? And let's say this is my file, .txt is the name of my file. And if I wanted to get this number 1 and put it into a variable, I can use an ifstream object to do that. And the way I'll do that is I'll create a object called ifstream. Then I need to open this file, so I will say n.open, and then my file name is called myfile.txt. And now I have an input stream object ready to get value from this file. So if I have an integer x, and now I want my x to have the value of 1 that is currently in my myfile.txt file, I can say in, and I'll use the extraction operator. Right? This is very similar to the way we use cout. That's going to take the value from my file and it's going to store it into this variable x. Now that I'm done reading the file, then I would have to close that file. Right? And then I could verify that x now has a value of 1. I can just say cout x, and it will cout the number 1 to the console. All right, so that is a basic usage of the IF streams. So now, let's talk about if we wanted to get a file that had multiple values in it. So say I had a file, and in this file I had multiple numbers inside. Now, from what we know, this sample code that I just wrote, this will actually just get one number, right? These are all in separate numbers, separate lines. So I will get the first number, but how do I get all the numbers? Well, if you haven't guessed, we can just use a loop. So this is going to be some really weird syntax, but the way I would loop through all this file is that I want to loop through this file, and I'm going to keep reading from this file until there's nothing left to read, right? So I want to just keep looping through and seeing if there's anything else left to read before I stop. And so the way we do that is very weird, but we're going to say, I'm going to have a variable and I'm going to call it next. And of course, you can call it whatever you want. And this variable is basically going to store the values from the file. So I can create a loop and I can say while my n can write a value to next, right? While it's able to extract a number from this file, right? Because if I get past 6, then I can no longer extract a number because the number doesn't exist. So my loop is saying, while I'm still able to get a number from the file, let's go ahead and keep storing that number into this variable named next, right? So it's going to keep doing this until it can't do it anymore. And now inside my file, inside my loop, I can say cout next. Right? And if I do something like this, then this will loop through and it'll write 1, 5, I don't remember what it was, 4, 5, 6. It'll write that to my console, right? Because it's going to keep looking through the file and it's going to see if it can put a value into next. And so if it does, then the value's in next, and then I can use that value next for whatever I need to use it for. And then it's going to keep looping and doing that, putting a value into next. And if we get to this while loop and it's saying put a value into next and it was not able to do it, then this loop actually stops. And so that's how we're able to loop through and get different values from a file. All right, and so that is going to conclude this basic file IO video. All right, thank you.